Thank you very much for being here today,
Well,
Pam.
thank you
And we're going
for
to talk
having
about
me.
that program, and we're going to talk about that program and the importance of it. And we want to know a little bit about you. So Betty, tell me all about Pam.
Well, Pam is dynamic. She's not just a writer and an author. Pam Goldstein was a nurse for 20 years before becoming the radio show host and producer of the award-winning Bogartov show at CJAM. During her 15 years with Bogartov, it became one of the top 5 Jewish programs in North America. And it was heard all over the world. That's
Yes.
fabulous. Even in the Middle East. During this time, she interviewed hundreds of world leaders in the arts, government, and medicine. She's also produced a kids show, wow, for 10 years called Reach for the Stars. That was a great show, actually, and another award-winning show. Pam has been a prolific writer for over 20 years, and she has even done some ENG work at Kojako. Her writing, if you'd like to view it, can be seen in many anthology books, including Bedpan Banter, a book used by the U.S. Cancer Society for colorectal cancer to raise funds for research. And besides writing, Pam is a sought-after editor. She has edited the latest Chicken Soup book, Canada, The Wonders of Winter, and has been asked to edit 2 more books from the writers in the States. And you've also organized and coordinated and run many events throughout the city of Windsor. And now we're doing this great big writers conference. Fantastic. So this is the first year that the writers conference is coming about. And how did you, coordinating this must have been like coordinating a wedding, a lot of time.
This is harder than a wedding. Having organized 2 weddings, I want to tell you, this was a lot harder, but it was so exciting. How it started is Amanda Gelman, who is the founder of the Rain Dance Arts Institute. She wants to do all the arts and make it available for anybody in Windsor, especially young kids and teenagers, to access it and to learn their craft. And as you well know, a lot of kids who are interested in the arts, they tend to leave Windsor, and our goal is to make them want to stay, give them things for them to do and want to stay. And so she started the film camp for kids.
My daughter did that. It was fabulous.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, they learned so much.
Yes, and she asked me to be one of the speakers talking about writing. And I had a blast. This one boy, he's so intense, and he wants to do a zombie film.
Of course.
And I said,
Boys.
well, I don't know how to tell you this. I said, but every single plot that's around here was first, written by William Shakespeare. And he goes, oh. And
him again.
Yeah, so then we did this whole banter, he and I, and he said, could you stop quoting Shakespeare? I just want to tell my story. So I went, to thine own self be true. Anyway. So, but, coming, we had already started this, but Amanda and I, when we sat down, what are the cornerstones of an art center? Film, dancing, singing, acting, music, and of course writing. Well, I can't sing worth a gosh darn, and dancing I used to do, but what I could help her with was the Writers' Conference. And having been to a whole bunch of conferences around North America, I'd gotten to know some people, and I said, let me start with this. So the first thing we did was sat down with BookFest, and we said, okay, this is what we want to do. We don't want to step on your toes, but we think this is a vital thing for Windsor because we have over 1,000 published authors. And sat down with Sarah and Ann, and they said, oh, this is awesome. And we offered them half of our profits if we were going to make any, and they said, oh, no, that's okay. We'll do our thing, and
You do.
you do this, because we don't do this, which is a conference for writers, be you a beginner or somebody who's interested in trying to write, or somebody who's a published author. These people coming are the best of the best in the world as writers.
And that brings you right back to right off the top is like how has been the response?
It's interesting. The people who are more interested, other than Windsorites, are people from Europe and Africa.
Really?
Like most of our people are coming from across the ocean.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. So we have.
So now you actually created a little bit of tourism at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the ultimate goal. In fact, that's why we have Paul Schwartz, and we have a jazz trio, and we have the Caboto Italian men's choir performing. Just not a lot, but just enough that it gives it a special flair, especially when our title is Writing Across Boundaries.
Of course, yeah.
And what is writing across boundaries? Why did we choose that? Well, we come from a city that has 130 different ethnic groups, and we all get along. Like, we could teach the United Nations a thing or two, you know?
And that is true. Yeah,
It totally
good
is,
point.
because we do all get along, and we do really enjoy learning about all these different ethnicities. But there are some rules, like, you know, who gets to write the story? And are you crossing the line if you're a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant and you want to write about the First Nation people? And in fact, one of our speakers, Michael Grey Eyes, is a professional actor. He was in Crazy Horse in California.
Okay, yeah.
He was the star. And I said to him, I really want you to come. I said, I want you to talk about that, because he talks often about being a First Nation person in a movie about First Nation people that was written by somebody who was white Anglo-Saxon Protestant and didn't do his work right, didn't do his homework.
Ouch, that hurts.
Like misrepresented, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And-
And is it that, I think, is it watched more? Because when we have our more older, prolific writers, almost even a Mark Twain,
Yeah.
okay, and he just went and did his story and wrote what he had to write, and I don't think anybody really dissected it.
Yeah,
Is it
exactly.
looked at tougher nowadays?
I think you have to be, you really have to know your stuff. And I think everybody from news anchors on down to the author do not know their stuff. They don't know how to write a story. They don't know how to do the research. They don't know, you know, whose toes they're stepping on. Like even the girl who wrote The Help, which I thought was a great movie,
Yep.
Viola
Yep.
Davis. But she got criticized because they said, no, you're from a different category. You can't write about these women because you don't know how they feel. In fact, she's one of the people we're trying to get to come for
Okay,
next
still?
year.
Yep, yeah, oh, for
You
next year.
know?
Okay, good.
So, but I mean, even like, and I thought she did a good job, but there's still, like, we have to research more. You have to look into it more. How do you write somebody else's story when you've never experienced anything that they've done? What research do you have to do? And some of
And who calls it into question? I'll say it that.
Yes,
Who calls it into
and
question?
who calls
so it's the publisher looking at it, and okay, I want to see your background notes. I want to make sure, before we release this, I want to make sure you're hitting
Yeah.
it right on the mark. I don't want those questions
Exactly.
after the fact.
And
Yeah.
that's my big concern. I sit there and I watch the news at night and I just cringe. And I mean, if I did something like that on my radio show, I would have been raked over the coals and everything. And I had to, I mean, it was a volunteer radio show for 2.5 hours. But boy, did I ever research. I was doing 40 hours of research for a 2.5-hour show because I didn't want to be the one where they could say, you didn't do your work.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, for me, that was the impetus to really get this going, is that there is an ethics to writing, and there is morality in it, and there is a responsibility. So we have people like Professor Rick Sykes, who was an ABC or NBC news director for years, and now he teaches at a university in Michigan. He was voted one of the best teachers in North America. But his thing is, he said, even if you're writing a paragraph and you say the terrorist as opposed to a terrorist, he said the terrorist implies that you know who this person is and what he stands for. But a terrorist means nobody knows what this guy is really about. He says, and that's really key. He said it
Loaded
changes
words.
the whole look of what that story really means.
Okay, so I'll take that again to a different type of level, and we'll call it the Fox aspect. Okay,
Yeah.
so are we trying to, like using something like Richard Sykes, are we trying to return it to how it once was,
Yeah.
because Fox seems to jump around. We're getting totally off topic. But
I
anyway,
know,
but
I
Fox has really had it kind of changed how news is being reported or how writing is being.
But say,
how
so
it's
is,
written.
yeah, so is CNN though.
But they're all following Fox instead of
yeah,
vice versa.
instead of
So the
you
Walter
know,
Cronkite. I'm
yes,
dating
those-
myself a bit. But
yeah,
Walter Cronkite.
those kinds of people, they did the research.
Yes.
And a classic example is like when you come out with a story on the news. Like, Griffiths, the Griffiths woman was classic. How many stations announced that the poor woman was dead? In essence, she was still alive and she was going for surgery.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? Where is your ethic that says, we don't know yet? You can say that. And I think people respect that more. And the same in a book. You don't have to always, a fiction book, you don't always have to come to a conclusion at the end. You don't have to wrap it up like they do on TV. You can say, there is no answer here.
I've reported the story. Here's the information.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
or
this-
I've written a book.
story.
I've written anything.
I don't have any answers. I'm just telling you this is what happened to these characters.
Okay, very good. Okay.
I think everybody's trying to make it to the top too quickly, and they're bringing sensationalism instead of really great stories.
Yeah.
And we know that the whole foundation of any kind of film is not all the action, but it's a great screenplay, right?
Yeah.
And if it's a really great screenplay, then it will be a memorable, wonderful film because it's about telling that story.
Yeah. In fact, I just saw a great film called Fury, the Brad Pitt movie
Yes.
about the World War II tanks. There was no moralizing in it. There was nothing about that. It was just, this is what their lives were in these tanks, and this is the hell they went through. And there was no heroism. There was nothing like that. It was just that.
Okay. So what is the conference going to bring? Like, what is I'm going to say not what the goal is, but what are your expectation for the attendees with the guests that you've invited to try
Yeah.
to teach them?
Definitely.
change their mindset, maybe?
It's an educational process. And those are the kinds of writer conferences I like to go to, are the ones where you're going to learn the craft. I mean, you can read a book that tells you, oh, well, if you want to be self-published, you do this and this and this. That's all well and good. And people are always looking to meet agents and things like that. And we have a bunch of agents coming, and they're great. And they will read your work. But the agents I chose are ethical agents.
Okay.
Like I have Paul Levine coming from California, who's an amazing man. He's a lawyer first, and then he's an agent, a literary agent. And he looks at all of those little things. Like, did you tell your story properly? Did you do the research? Do you have permission to tell that story? And one of the things we're doing is on Friday evening, we have Leslie McCurdy, who's a fabulous actress, and Miriam Goldstein from the Edge Productions. They're putting on Collected Stories by Donald Margulies. And it's based on the real life of a poet in New York who halfway through her life decided she was going to write her memoirs. And then he took it from there. But he got permission to fictionalize it. And what she does is she hires somebody to be an ingenue to write the stories, to ghostwrite the story for her. She got halfway through, realized she was going to hurt a lot of people, and she stopped and she said, I don't want to do this anymore. But what she didn't do was get the ingenue to write sign a paper that said that she would not take those stories. So the ingenue took the stories, got them published, and the rest of the play is legally she was certainly right to do that, but morally was she correct?
Okay, yeah.
So that's the kind of thing. One of the other things we're going to talk about, we have a panel with Michael Gray Eyes and some of the other people about whose story is it to write. And that's when, Michael is giving a presentation. But again, like, what is it? When do you cross that line and make it an offensive piece as opposed to something thoughtful and thought-provoking?
Okay, and also in the point of what you're trying to accomplish, do you, again, the versus having quality writing versus sensationalism,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because the pull is to make it
It's to do the
sensationalistic.
sensationalism. But I mean, even if you do a sensational story, you still have to follow these ethical lines. We have Naomi Reagan coming from Israel. And this woman has spent her life writing about women in oppressed religions. But she was smart enough, like she realized, I mean, she's not a Muslim woman, so she can't talk about that. So she looks at the ultra-Orthodox Jewish people and how women are oppressed in that religion. And of course, any other woman who's in those oppressed religions can relate to her doing that. And she's a bestseller because women can relate to that.
Okay. What about, going back before a little bit, we were talking about getting a quality publisher or quality agent. And I know I've done the search, and I actually found that the internet is not that good.
That's
It's kind of helter skelter. You're getting into your 10th page before you really figure out that this is just a big waste of time. So are you hoping, or not? You hoping? Are they going to try to help help the writers out and guide them? Maybe like is that one of the seminars? Or?
One of our we have a pre-conference with agents and publishers, and you bring your first 500 words, and they will sit there with you and 5 other of your peers or 10 other of your peers and critique the work and say. And I found this when I first did this. I was a nervous wreck at the very first writers conference I did that at, but I found it extremely helpful because first you get the opinion of your peers, and lots of times it is not the same as the opinion of the agent or the publisher who's there, and they tell you you're way off track. First of all, how dare you try and tell a teenager that this is how they should be feeling, because you just can't do that. And it's very, very helpful. And they're also going to talk about query letters, which is the biggest dreaded thing in a writer's life. I mean, it took me 100,000 words to write this. Now you want it in 2 sentences. Like, give me a break. I can't do that. So they're going to talk about query letters and what their pet peeves are. And I think it's important to understand their side of the story. Again, but it's true. It's their side of the story. And what are they going through? And what are they looking for? Like, there's one agent who's coming. She can tell in the first sentence whether or not she's going to like the book.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And that's how many that's how many manuscripts she's read.
Okay.
And she can tell immediately.
That's a good trait. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
To have,
And so basically what you've got is 1 sentence to capture that person's attention.
That's a little stressful.
Yeah.
But it's great for giving someone direction. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, great artists have these great writings, but they don't know how to get it out there to other people, so they keep hidden.
It's true. Like, it's just since I have my own agent that I've actually had the courage to write a query letter. And because to me, that's and a summary. You want a 1-page summary on something that took me 10 years to write? I can't do that, But these people are there to say, oh yeah, you can. And this is how you do it. There's a science to it.
We had actually both graduated from the Mediaplex journalism program, Convergence Journalism, and we had to go through the exercise of sending out query letters.
Yes.
With a story, like a real story and a real query letter. And we were actually, first you got marks if you at least sent one out, because some of the younger students just thought it was a big, just didn't want to bother doing it. And I had a favorable response. They actually were going to put on file, thank you very much. Our one magazine is full right now. We might take a look at it in the next edition, which they didn't, and I kept kind of sitting on it. But then I wanted, it's something that I don't think people knew. I wanted now to pull back that story because they didn't use it. And I had to send an email back and saying, I'm pulling back my query.
Yeah.
And they did respond and said, oh, so sorry, we didn't use your, but if you don't say anything, it sits in their file, then some other editor could pull it out 5 years later.
Yeah, same with Chicken Soup for the Soul. Those books, when you send a story in, that's their story until they decide whether to publish it or not. You have to send them a letter to say, sorry, you didn't use my story, I'm going to pull it back and I'm going to give it to somebody else, but you have to make that.
And I don't think, I caught it from going to school, and I was fairly fresh. But I could have just published it, and all of a sudden, I could have been, if I had just given it to somebody else, actually, it was a writing a contest.
Yeah.
That the CBC writing contest, I put it in. And here it is, they're saying, has it ever been printed before? And I'm going, oh, gee, I got to pull it back because they could have done that, and here I'm trying to win a contest.
Right.
So you have to be careful. You really do.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of things we're going to talk about. We did have Chuck Sambucino coming, who is the maven of query letters. But his wife got pregnant, and the due
Busy.
date is the same as this, and he felt terrible. But for the people who are registering, the first 5 registrants, if they want, and it's interesting because a lot of writers who are coming are not at that level, but if they want, he will critique the first 5
very good.
query letters.
Okay, cool.
And we have Gord Kirkland, who's a humorist writer. He had a column for years and years in over 400 newspapers, and he's written a bunch of books. And in fact, he just co-produced Muffin Top, Bruce Cameron's latest film that's out. And we're going to have a free showing of that. And he's going to be there to say, these are the decisions we made and this is why.
Oh,
but
excellent.
he's also going to take the first 5 pages from 10 people and critique them and say, this is what's wrong,
Okay.
or this is what's good.
I was going to say, as a writer, do you ever feel, I think a lot of writers have these great writings, but it's also hard to let other people kind of go into your soul and see what you're writing. How do you know when it's ready to show people?
Funny you should say that. I've just written a manuscript that I've been trying to write for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
And it literally, it's what happened was in the 70s, I took care of a lot of Holocaust survivors.
Wow.
And after work, I used to go and read to them, and they loved Harlequin romances. And so then they decided, after 1 or 2 books, that I should write their stories about the Holocaust. But they wanted it in a Harlequin romance, spy, thriller, epic,
Oh.
historical novel. And you go, oh yeah, I can
do that.
And it took me 20 years to get it to where I was like, oh, okay, now it's got some kind of semblance of order to it. But when I let it go, I didn't look at it for 5 years, and then I just brought it out, and I had over 300,000 words. And those kinds of stories, there's rules,
Yeah.
and it has to be between 100 and 120,000 words. And I got it down to 140,000.
There's so much information. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but,
And I don't want to lose the time or
Okay.
and the flavor. I want to talk about the conference. But so you had, and it's only a question, okay? So you had an early bird special
Yeah.
To get people to register. Do you have, are you filling up? Do you have a latecomer special? Or what are you doing as you're getting closer to the end?
What we decided was, because it was the first time, and we did have some problems with our website there for a little while, we just left it at $385.
Oh, okay.
So anybody can come.
Oh,
And
that's fabulous. That's
yeah,
great.
and it includes most meals. The only one it might not include is breakfast, but then if you're staying at the Waterfront Hotel has breakfast.
Breakfast anyway,
So
okay.
does Holiday Inn, and so does Quality Suites if you're staying at any of those. And we've also got a student. One of the students came up and said, I want to come, and she was all tearful.
But I'm so broke.
I'm so broke, I can't afford it. And I said, okay, we got to look at this. So we've put a student fee of $225. Again, it includes most of
Yay.
your meals. And they have the same opportunities as everybody else. And if there's a group of 10 or more who come, then we'll give them an even bigger discount.
Okay,
Just
very
because
good.
we want, this is such a rare thing that happens when all of these really famous people say, oh, sure, okay. And what happened last night, I just got a phone call from Abigail Rockwell. I don't know if you know who she is. She's the granddaughter of Norman Rockwell,
Oh,
the
okay.
painter.
Oh, very good. Oh, wow.
And they're having a problem with somebody who decided to write a biography about her grandfather, and it's all wrong. And so when she saw this, she called me up and she says, oh my God, this is the first time in the history of the world that somebody's had the guts to say, this is wrong. Let's look at how we write things properly. And so she asked, she can't come to this year's conference, but she's still looking. She's going to try and come, but definitely, she said, please put me down for next year. She says, and I will talk about the issues that
fabulous.
we've had.
So you're already establishing the profile
Yeah.
that's going to help you continue on.
Yeah,
very
and we've also had a few people from California. Two of them are very famous, have written to me and said, look, we want to come next year. And I can't say yet because we're in negotiations. But yeah, it's incredible. But what are you going to do? We just have to get it established. And we have the very great possibility of this being one of the best writers' conferences in North America.
Okay.
Amazing. Now, tickets you can get at the door, and right as well too, or do you have to get them in advance?
Then you can't
Because of
have meals.
That's right. Okay.
You can't have meals, but I mean, you
Okay.
can come to the door. But we do have some things like Bruce Cameron, who never comes to conferences, very rarely. We've put it out that if you want to meet Bruce Cameron, you can come. Naomi Reagan, because she so rarely comes across the ocean, we decided for lunch and for to hear her is $45. And the
Okay,
same with
great.
Nino Ricci, who is coming, and he's talking about ethics and ethnicity in writing, and which is incredible. Like he's the maven of that. He does that, very, very, very well. He's won awards for it. And so we've put him also as somebody that you can sit and have dinner and listen to him.
Oh, that's very, very fair. So I was going to say, a lot of people, I'm sure, are looking at this saying, November 13th to the 16th, I want to come all these days, but I can only come for one day
Yeah.
or for one. So that there's
Then-
options.
Yeah, there is that option. We have a couple of people who can only come on the Friday.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so, but they have to contact us, and then we'll tell them about it. Because, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, the
exciting.
focus, the focus is to make sure people have the opportunity to enjoy the full conference.
Because there's a whole atmosphere that happens when you're at a writers' conference. And it really is like you're up till 2 and 3 in the morning with these writers, and they kind of let their hair down and they, and you're at the bar and you're talking, and it's amazing what you learn. In fact, one conference I went to, John Mayer, this fabulous writer, he said to me, honey, don't go to this panel. It was for beginners. Like, how do you make your manuscript look professional? He said, honey, you're so way beyond that. He said, go sit in the bar. And so I went, okay. I'm
if I
going to go
must.
sit in the bar.
Yeah.
And he said, you'll be surprised. And this is when, I forget what it's called, where you hook up your internet in the wall. And I happen to be sitting next to it. So this guy comes running in.
Oh,
He's
but
in
you
a
had to
jet.
plug it, no Wi-Fi. Okay,
He's in this Rolls Royce, and he comes running in. He's bedecked in jewels. He says, honey, I need to use this. I said, oh, okay. And so I moved, and so we start talking, and he happened to be Bill Gates.
Oh, wow, right, there you go.
And I went, oh.
Okay, you can use it, I guess. Yeah.
But he said, hi, I'm Bill Gates. And I said, oh, hi, I'm Pam Goldstein. And then, we're talking and we're chatting away. And then he gets up and he leaves. And I went, wait a minute, Bill Gates?
I should have asked you a million questions. Oh my gosh, right?
And that's what happens at writers' conferences.
It's the after, I've been to a number of, I'm going to say, week-long conferences, and it was always said that we get more information, you learn so much more was after class was done.
Yeah.
And not that class wasn't important.
No,
that's where
it
you did the
is.
bonding part of it. But then it was sitting afterwards, whether it was at dinner, whether it was with breakfast in the morning,
Yeah.
is when you learn twice as much.
In
Absolutely.
fact, Gord has already planned on having evening after everything is said and done. He's going to invite people to come and sit and read some of their work,
nice.
and he'll, and you go back and forth and you learn. And that's a real eye-opener, because this story I was telling you about Holocaust survivors, I went to this California conference, and I realized as soon as I'd read these 5 pages, it has to be a work in progress, it's really cool, and I realized I hated my leading lady. And I went, oh my God, I don't like her at all. And the guy looked at me and he laughed. He says, I was wondering when you're going to figure that one out. go. So that's what, it's that kind of stuff that we want to bring to Windsor.
So what happens for writers? I mean, a lot of times writers have like 4 different things in progress.
Yeah.
And you,
Hi, that's me.
so one of these conferences, what do you suggest that they bring one piece and focus on that?
It depends. It depends on how many genres
I
you're
was gonna- yeah,
interested in.
exactly.
At the pre-conference, we have 2 of them where you can sit with agents and publishers and read your work. So you could do like historical romance in the morning, but if you're working on a spy thriller, you can do that in the afternoon.
Oh, great.
So
It works out that way.
it works out. It works out really, really well. And if you don't happen to get to the person that you wanted to meet, then you can seek them out.
Nice. So don't come empty-handed to the conference
Never
and
come
say,
empty-handed.
you know what, I'm working on on something, but I don't have it yet. Just bring
Yeah,
what you have and
bring
be
it,
confident.
and they will show you that, you know, that's the key, is learning how to write really well is the bottom line of any writers conference.
And give you direction, because that's part of the thing too, is you get stuck sometimes and you're thinking, is this the direction I should go, or this? Yeah.
And always be brave. Always, you know, even if you think you're going to fall flat on your face, be brave and you read your stuff, because how else are you going to learn?
I was getting a note. I'm getting a note from my co-producer Alex. He wanted me to ask, well, show me the sign again. You know what? This is live. This is exactly how you do it.
Ask
So
her.
ask at the conference, the students missing classes in lieu of.
If they go to the, what about
If they go to the conference and they miss classes, did they get credit for it? Did you guys work on that?
I tried working on that. In fact, I spoke to John Fairley about it.
Oh, did you? Okay,
I
okay.
did.
Say sure.
And well, he said, "Oh, honey," he said, "This is where this has to be." And I said, "Okay, well, could you just do this and this and this and this, you know, so that it can be here for next year?" And one of the things he was going to talk to are the writing students.
Yes, and we're going to address that again. Anyways, on the Wednesday, you're going to be at the Mediaplex, St. Clair
Okay.
College Mediaplex, the journalism program. And you might only have it, I think they call it 3 minutes with now.
Yes.
Okay, this thrill's called 3 minutes with. I have one of the interns from St. Clair College, Ryan Turchiniak, with us today. But you're going to have that before
Oh yeah.
airtime and after
After the
airtime
airtime.
to work the professors there
Yeah.
at the Mediaplex. That's for
I
sure.
think it's important. I mean, it's one thing to go to class and to hear from your teachers, but it's somebody who's been working in the business for 20 years. And he can, you know, like Rick Sykes, he worked in the business for something like 15 years. He knows what journalism is about. He knows what's important. And unfortunately, Alistair MacLeod passed away. But he was going to come. He was so excited that this was going to happen in Windsor, and he was going to talk about writing a short story. So instead, I have Carol Ramey, who has been an editor of Chicken Soup books for her whole life, and she's a ghostwriter for many, many memoirs. And she's going to talk about the short story.
Okay, well,
Are you also going to touch on ghostwriting?
Not this time.
Okay.
This time, we're just trying to establish this is what we're talking about, you know, the ethics and getting the story straight and doing research and stuff like that.
Now, is there going to be anything for sale? Can you buy
Yes.
books? Okay,
Yes, all the books.
great, wonderful.
Yeah, we are working with the University of Windsor, and this guy's been wonderful, and he said, "Honey, I got your back." So I'm like, "Okay, good. I don't have to worry about this one."
Okay. So in saying that, we thank you very much for being on with us today, Pam. Okay, and we want everybody to please check out WindsorWC.org. If you still have a chance to register now. It's right on the screen right now.
You have until, I think it's next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday to do the official
A
registration.
week from Tuesday.
And get
week
your
from
work
Tuesday.
polished and ready to go. So
Okay,
stay
yeah.
until 2, 3 o'clock with lots of coffee.
That's right,
Yeah.
November 13th to the 16th at the St. Clair Center for the Arts.
Yes.
Okay, and again, thank you for being on the Convergence Report with Mike Thomas. And of course, we said a little bit ago, Betty Goodell was also here to make sure we had a good interview with Pam. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
And thanks for sharing your great expertise. It's been a pleasure. Right? It has.
Okay.